I've been aware of Pokemon ROM hacks and fan-made RPGs for quite a while now, but recently I decided to try out a few of them to see what they're all about. One thing to take into consideration is that I haven't completed the games I'm talking about. It's just a video showcasing my initial impressions of each game. Obviously, if there are interesting details I've missed, or you think should be talked about, write that in the comments below. We can tackle this subject of fan-made Pokemon games from a bunch of different angles, like how true the games are to real Pokemon games, as well as originality and things of that sort. I'm pretty open to try out all kinds of stuff, so I don't really mind if some fan-made games try to do something completely different or follow the original games more closely. Fan-made games are exactly that, fan-made. Sometimes it's just one person doing most of the development work, and at the very most, it's still just a handful of people. So while I will bring up imperfections and things I don't like, I don't think the creator should be judged too harshly if something isn't quite to my taste. Let's start with this one, Pokemon Uranium. I've heard a lot of good comments, so my expectations were moderately high. It features a lot of custom Pokemon, a new region called Tandor, and a new type, which is Nuclear. The overworld graphics are very reminiscent of Gen 3 games, like most other fan-made games, but there are elements of later gens sprinkled around, from sound to menu design and sprites and things like that. Unlike a normal Pokemon game, you can pick from 3 different protagonists. Their outfits look like a mashup of a few different protagonists from other games, but I don't think the style of their faces match the art style of the series. No matter which character you pick, the story is the same. Our character's mother seemingly dies when a nuclear power plant blows up, and the father becomes cold and focused on his work. Our character is raised by their aunt until it's time to go on a Pokemon adventure. I think the story is interesting, but not something you'd see in a real Pokemon game. I don't think we'll ever see a real Pokemon game that would have radiation and nuclear disaster as one of its main plot points. The Pokemon franchise prefers to address those things in more euphemistic ways, like how they did with X and Y and the weapon of mass destruction thing. But that's also one of the good things about fan-made games. You get original plots that you'd never get from official games. If you've ever played a Pokemon game before, you'll know what to do here. The sounds are familiar, the music is fitting, and the overworld looks pretty much spot on. The Fakemon, or Fakemon, or however they're pronounced, are imaginative and unique. I think it's easy to criticize the designs and go, oh, that's clearly not a real Pokemon. Game Freak would never do that. But if you look at real Pokemon, there are a lot that are incredibly bizarre in their appearance. So even if this chipmunk thing looks a bit derpy, it's no Bidoof. I play Pokemon more for the collecting aspect rather than battles, so I'm not too well versed when it comes to battle mechanics or balance, but I've not noticed anything out of place, which is good obviously. There are also 8 gym battles, which most fan-made games like to stick to. Hear that, Game Freak? Gym battles? Sounds like a good idea to try out for Gen 8. The Tandor region looks really good and I think it's well designed. There are some presentation issues in my opinion though. The menus are a mishmash of various gens, so it's somewhat odd to see such a shift in art style. The scrolling battle menu is also something that doesn't quite fit in. It does do a good job of conserving screen space though, and the health bars aren't the prettiest things to look at. Also, the background image during battles is low res and looks like it's taken from a Gen 6 or 7 game. It just comes across as unrefined if there are elements that don't harmonize well. As good as this game is, you can tell straight away that it looks fan-made. The game is a lot of fun though, and it's commendable that they decided to use mostly new Pokemon. There are some familiar Pokemon here and there though. I recommend checking it out. There are GTS and online functions I haven't explored, but it's cool to see that something like that has been implemented. There's a wiki for it with a lot of information, so check that out if you want more info. Link is in the description. Next up is Pokemon Insurgence. I really like this game. The story is darker than you'd find in an official game. You can choose between tame and darker stories, but they're essentially the same in terms of major plot points, apparently. The tame version doesn't feature death or blood, and comes across as much more vanilla, while the dark version is, well, darker, with blood and death and all that. I've got it set to the tame setting because the dark version dialogue and cutscenes aren't really my thing. It's not like it's scary or anything. I think the tame version leaves more to your imagination, allowing your mind to fill in any of the gaps, which I enjoy. I'm really glad the developers decided to have a tame and dark version of the story. That's a lot of extra work just to please a few people that don't like that aspect of the story. Speaking of story, Pokemon Insurgence takes place in a brand new and original region called Tauren. There are multiple cults who fight each other, and there's a person called an Augur, I think it's pronounced, and protects the people of Tauren from those cults. You wake up inside the lair of one of those cults with your memories erased, and the game starts from there. It's a really interesting story. I like it quite a bit despite not having played that far into it yet. You can catch Pokemon from Gen 1 through 6, and there are new Mega Evolutions to mix things up and something called Delta Pokemon, which are similar to regional variants. They look different and are different types compared to their originals. I like stuff like this. It's actually possible to choose a Delta Pokemon as a starter, but I didn't because if I can choose Eevee as a starter, I pick Eevee. It's one of my rules that I have to follow. The graphics look nice, and the menus are consistent, so it does very well in the visuals department. Nothing looks out of place. Is my character barefoot? The music is well done and very atmospheric at times. There's a lot to like, even though there are many things I haven't played around with yet. Also, like with Uranium, there are online functions and a wiki to check out, so take a look at the links in the description if you want to read more about it. I've played 3 different fan-made games, and Pokemon Reborn is the last one we'll talk about in this video. Like the other 2, Pokemon Reborn takes place in a new region called Reborn. The unique thing here is that a lot of the region is urban with a really rundown look. It's really unique and it changes how the game flows as well. The traditional procedure of heading out of town and going through patches of grass doesn't really apply here. There are the odd patches of grass here and there, but it's more likely you'll encounter sketchy trainers looking for a fight. The whole game has a great atmosphere. The story goes like this. After picking your character's appearance and gender, you find yourself on a train heading to Reborn City. The train explodes or catches on fire in the station due to sabotage. So basically you're 1 minute in and almost got blown up by terrorists, basically. The overall tone is towards the darker end of the spectrum, obviously. After all that, you get to choose your starter, which can be any starter of any generation. It's nice having so many options. It's got online functions like the other games we talked about, a very big world, and 18 gyms. The world design is well done, and the 16-bit graphics are always fun for me because it allows my mind to fill in any missing details. Like Insurgence, Reborn has original music that reinforces the darker tone. There really isn't much to dislike. A lot of the reason I like Reborn has to do with the atmosphere, so if you like what you see, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy playing the game as well. Check out the link in the description for more information if you're interested in this game. It's a bit difficult for me to say which one of these 3 games I like the most. All of them are good, but for different reasons. Uranium has a lot of new Pokemon, which are well designed, and some people may or may not like that, but I still think it's cool. Insurgence has a darker story, new Mega Evolutions, and Delta Pokemon, and Reborn also has a dark tone, but with a much more urban region and regular Pokemon from Gen 1 to 8. So even though I like all of them, I think Insurgence and Reborn are my favorite of these 3. Let me know what you think of this video. It's not really a review, but more of a first impression sort of thing. Leave comments if you want to see more fan-made Pokemon games, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.